Hello and welcome to Banking Frontiers Live. We have this wonderful conversation alongside SIBOS. With me, I have two wonderful gentlemen here who are luminaries from their own aspect in the industry, who have been into research or into consulting for the financial services sector. Let me introduce you first to Shankar Ramamurthy, who is the Global Managing Partner for Banking and Financial Markets at IBM Consulting. And Hans is another great luminary who has been doing a lot of study across the financial sector and building a strong ecosystem to bring the banks and the technology sector together. Hans is the head of BIAN Banking Industry Architecture Network and based in Germany. Hans, welcome to Banking Frontiers Live. Shankar, coming to this entire research that you have jointly done on embedded finance, what has been the objective of this result? Before I go to Hans to explain his role into it.
Sounds good. So, IBM, Red Hat, and BIAN together have been working on helping financial institutions and the whole ecosystem get much more collaborative, much more in partnership to improve the opportunity for all of us. And in that context, together we launched the study called Embedded Finance, Creating the Everywhere, Everyday Bank. And as part of that, we interviewed over 1,000 executives around the world in banking and over 12,000 customers. And some really compelling outcomes coming out of the study. And I'm really happy that we did that together with BIAN. And I'll have Hans talk about BIAN, then I'll come back and talk about some of the key findings from the study.
Wonderful. So, Hans, coming to you, BIAN has always been in existence for so many years. But if you can give a quick backgrounder on BIAN and its role in this entire study that IBM and BIAN has done.
Yeah, so BIAN starts for the Banking Industry Architecture Network. So we started in 2008, and our mission statement is to solve the integration issues for the banks. So when we started, the integrations were primarily inside the bank, and then we moved into the API space outside the bank, so the interconnectivity with all the third parties. And now we moved all those APIs back inside the bank again, and then we launched an initiative what we call the coreless bank. Can you run a system without a core banking system? A bank without a core banking system. And we have now the third iteration that we launch here at SIBOS called Proof of Concept number 3. It's all about open banking. It's not PowerPoint, it's not PDF, it is running software, runs in the whole of the IBM environment. So we did it with a lot of partners. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at it because it's a great example how you can use standards, how you can use an ecosystem, and in full collaboration with the standards and the ecosystem create something that is of value for the banks and their customers. So later on you will probably touch on, okay, how can we help banks to migrate from old to new? And then I can give a little bit more explanation how the coreless idea will help banks to migrate.
Wonderful. So, we have been talking a lot about how organizations are migrating into the next generation of technology. Okay, be it AI, be it digital transformation, be it transformation in payments. And ultimately, there is a huge gap in technology because they have been running in the legacy core banking app. And rightly so, when you have said you are working on how to leapfrog the banks from the core to that of the digital transformation. What are the key findings that you have had in this study as to what are the banks struggling with today? Okay, and how are they working towards leapfrogging to this transformation?
Sounds good. So let me talk to the key findings, and then the point that Hans was making around Coreless 3.0, you will get a sense for why it is that in BIAN we are focused on Coreless 3.0. So there are 5 key things that came out of the study. Like I said, we talked to over 1,000 executives and over 12,000 customers around the world. 5 key things. 70% of the banking executives recognize that embedded finance is either core to what they're doing or really important to what they're doing, what we call complementary to what they're doing. Now, having said that, only 20% are actually live with initiatives in the embedded finance space. A lot of that kind of work has happened in Asia Pac and Latin America and so on. So the growth market banks are ahead in terms of what's being done in the embedded finance space. So that's the second finding. The third finding is that there is a meaningful gap between what banks are thinking are the most important things in the embedded finance space versus what consumers' expectations are. So banks are focused, beyond security and protection, which is top of mind for both consumers and banks. Banks are focused on areas like peer-to-peer payments and buy now, pay later, example, while customers are focused much more on customer service, mobile wallet, rewards, etc. So there's the disconnect between where banks are investing versus what customers are expecting. That's kind of the third finding. The fourth finding, which is directly relevant to Coreless 3.0, is monolithic architectures and the lack of APIs and microservices is constraining the ability of financial institutions to take advantage of embedded finance opportunities to collaborate with the ecosystem. And the fifth finding is that privacy and security continue to be key important themes for both customers on the one hand and banks on the other as they move forward in the space. Huge opportunity ahead, which is why we are working together with BIAN, which is why we are making the investment in Coreless 3.0. Let me have Hans talk to that.
Yeah, so what we are thinking of is, okay, if we use the APIs that we create for the external connectivity, and we see if we can use them in the microservice for the internal connectivity, maybe we then can help banks to move into a best of breed. So take the best payment solution, take the best KYC, and so on. So to do so, it gives the banks a huge agility to move forward, to become a real composable enterprise. That's the underlying. So we started in 2019 with our first iteration of the Coreless Bank. Then last year we had the second iteration, and now we have the third. And the third iteration is all about all the abilities we have in open banking. So we provide a bank the opportunity to look at the data that the new customer has with another bank and then come up with the next best. So we see you have at your existing bank, we see you have a mortgage, we can give you a better. So that is something that is never shown before. That's what we do. And it stated it's running software. So outside you at the IBM booth, you can run a demo. So it's on your mobile device, you do everything on your mobile device, the whole front end is created by Salesforce, and then you run real software. We have the HSBC sandbox environment to get the customer data out. Of course, it's all imaginary data, not real data, but to demonstrate it. So instead of PowerPoint and PDFs, it's software that's running real life and deployed. So to demonstrate how the ecosystem combined with standards, not only the BIAN standard, but also the open banking standards and the ISO 20022 standard, that combination, ecosystem and standards, can give you that competitive advantage to move forward at higher speed and lower cost. That's what we price.
And how is this? You spoke a lot about customer expectations and customer experience. Okay. Now, banks have been working very closely in the area of customized pricings, the customized kind of offerings to the customers.
Sure.
Okay. How are banks being facilitated this particular thing with AI coming into a real-time picture? How is the entire scene changing, where customers can get more what they want from the bank rather than just only going for what the bank wishes to give?
Yeah, great point. I'd make kind of three comments around this. One is that from an IBM standpoint, we recognize that exponential technologies are a very, very powerful set of capabilities that banks can use to unlock economic value for their customers. And from our chairman and CEO standpoint, he's given us clearly three things to focus on, two mandates. Mandate number one is around hybrid cloud computing. And that is really bringing together the full spectrum of compute capability, whether it's your own data center, private cloud, or the multiple hyperscalers, or anything that's available on the cloud, That's the reason why we made the investment in Red Hat, $20+ billion, to enable our clients to have the compute platform, the fit for purpose platform, to address their compute needs. That's mandate number one, and we are very much focused on that. Mandate number two is take advantage of all the data by bringing advanced analytics, AI, and generative AI to bear on the opportunity to drive value for the bank's customers. And everything we are doing, including the What's the Next announcement that we have made recently, is to help make that transformation happen. And number three, and importantly, Arvind is focused on ecosystems and partnerships. Winning in this world of embedded finance requires collaboration, requires partnership, and that means in our case, working with standards organizations like BIAN, plus ISVs and fintechs and other systems integrators to achieve the right outcome for financial institutions. And in that context, when you deconstruct complex core banking systems and componentize using microservices and APIs, using ISVs and third-party capability, you're able to unlock the promise that the customer is expecting from financial institutions. And that's the journey we are on. And that's what Codeless 3.0 is about. And that's what everything we are doing in IBM, the $20 billion plus of revenues we get from working with financial institutions around the world, and the $5+ billion of consulting work, that's really all focused on converting that promise into reality.
And the last question, what does a bank need to do to get into Codeless 3.0?
Yeah, well, I think first they need to understand what it means. So that I think that's the importance. So what is Codeless 3 implies? And then they have to find, so they need to figure out where am I today and where do I want to be tomorrow. And what is the path between now and then. And there is no one answer because each organization is different. But what we can do together with our partners, our members, is that you say, okay, don't start with a blank sheet of paper. We already figured some things out. Just pick and choose what thing is best for you and start from there. So we give them more or less a sort of draft roadmap that everybody can implement to their own needs and their own level of maturity in that. I think that's the best way to do it. So we are not for profit, we don't sell it. So people can look at their homepage, they can see the materials, they can contact us. Of course, if you become a member, that's even better, but okay, you don't have to be a member to use the material. So I think, look at it, learn from it, implement. I think that's wonderful.
I would suggest three things, right? This space is moving at extraordinary speed, exponential technology. On the one hand, it's an incredible opportunity. On the other hand, it can be a real threat when you got the tech fins and the fintechs backing into some of the most profitable parts of the financial services value chain. So my exhortation to the banking executives tend to be around three questions. Question number one, given the opportunity and the rate and pace at which things are moving, is your strategy ambitious enough to take advantage of what's possible? Question number two is, are you moving fast enough? To many of the points Hans was making. And question number three is, are you taking advantage of all that the ecosystem is offering, or are you trying to do it by yourself? Ecosystems give you the most compelling way to unlock the opportunity and do it at the rate and pace that's required to convert potential into reality.
Correct. Absolutely. And I think kudos to you for forming this alliance and trying to see how you can create the bank of the future with the kind of embedded technologies that are into it, and standards play quite a very important role in putting all these things together. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.